At a remote site in the heart of India stands an extraordinary mystery. A group of temples covered in exquisitely carved sculptures, built 1,000 years ago. Lost and forgotten in the jungle for hundreds of years, the explicit nature of these carvings caused a wave of shock and shame when they were rediscovered in the 19th century. What inspired the builders to portray the sexual union in a place of worship? Do they mirror the indulgence of a decadent society, or explain the profound philosophy of a highly enlightened one? The Wedding of the Gods, the Shivoham festival, is the only surviving link to the past still celebrated every year in Khajuraho. Could this be a key to the understanding of these extraordinary temples? In 1838, British Captain T.S. Burt of the Bengal Engineers heard about the wonders of a place called Khajuraho. Intrigued, he decided to see for himself and published this account.
I found in the ruins 7 large temples, most beautifully and exquisitely carved. But the sculpture had at times allowed his subjects to grow rather warmer than there was any absolute necessity for his doing. Indeed, some of the sculptures here were extremely indecent and offensive, which I was at first much surprised to find in temples that are professed to be erected for good purposes and on account of religion. But the religion of the ancient Hindus could not have been very chaste if it induced people under the cloak of religion to design the most disgraceful representations to desecrate the ecclesiastical erections.
Captain Burt wasn't alone in his shock about the erotic depiction. It is almost a miracle that these sculptures survived the Islamic and British influences. Even in the 20th century, Indian politicians became so worried about the prestige of their country that they considered covering the temples in mud. The meaning of these sculptures remains enigmatic and has sparked academic debate since their discovery. Some historians have suggested that Khajuraho represents a decadent phase of history in which morals had fallen so low that they even portrayed sexual intercourse on temple walls. Others believe they are an illustration of the Kama Sutra, the ancient text on the art of love. Dr. Shobita Punja is actively involved in heritage education and the conservation of Khajuraho.
It wasn't done out of decadence, it was done out of a supreme understanding of the principles of sculpture, the philosophy, and the meaning of life. That we have to appreciate that life is not just about the body or just about the spirit, it's about this beautiful blend of the two.
When I see this beautiful goddess, she has her arms raised and her head bent back, and I see her beautiful chest, and here is a male figure just making love to her. I really see how that connects the earth and the sky, the earth, the human with the divine. And that's what Tantra really is for me, is connecting the base with the higher energies and to transform the sexual lust into spiritual bliss.
Indian society today is very different from the society represented in Khajuraho 1,000 years ago. Sexuality is hidden. Tenderness in public and bare shoulders are rarely to be seen.
When the British came, that whole Victorian era, we started wearing blouses. You just wore the sari and your breasts were bare. I mean, in this climate, you don't want to wear clothes that you wear in cold Europe. So, our attitudes towards our body, towards life, towards fertility are really very different. In India, we never saw sex as pornography or pleasure. It was just part of life.
There are countless temples in India which have some erotic scenes integrated into their decoration, but not in the abundance of Khajuraho. In recent years, Indians have begun to rediscover their cultural heritage. Does the vision portrayed by these architects hold value for the modern society, which in India couldn't even show couples kissing in movies until recently?
Hundreds of years back, they were clear and they had shown it to the public. So there is nothing wrong. So now I feel that we don't need to be scared or worried about our sexuality. I mean, we can be open about it.
It's very accepting and open, and I love that feeling about it, that it embraces all as opposed to rejecting anything.
Here in Khajuraho, this is one way of expressing explicitly some of the deepest thought about cosmos, the human concept of ecstasy, and the world, which is in a way unknown. I find the whole thing very mind-boggling.
The temples of Khajuraho were built 1,000 years ago, at a time when India was at a peak of culture and wealth. Science and philosophy were dedicated to discovering the core of the inner world, the self, and found their expression in music, art, poetry, drama, and dance. "400 years previously, northern India had gradually disintegrated into many small kingdoms without a central authority. This became the ideal ground for a multiplicity of different cults and belief systems. At the same time, the ancient practice of Tantrism, with its emphasis on feminine energy, was experiencing a revival. In Tantric perspective, the entire universe is built up and sustained by dual forces. They are essentially two aspects of one indivisible whole. Duality exists only on a physical plane, while on higher levels, only union remains. Out of this union, all creation arises. Tantrism, both in its Buddhist and Hindu forms, influenced philosophy, ritual, and the arts. It also colored the tribal forms of worship in the area of Khajuraho. At the beginning of the 10th century, the Tantric perspective had achieved immense popularity and dominated in northern India. Into this atmosphere, the Chandilas, the builders of these temples, rose to power. They were Rajputs, belonging to the warrior caste, and had been feudal lords under the former kings, the Pratiharas. Dr. Vikram Prakash is an expert on Indian temple structure.
These new Rajput kingdoms, as they established themselves, one of the important things for them, as they became caste members of Hinduism, was to express their newly acquired caste identity by building temples. And of course, incorporating sexuality became a very expedient and powerful way of forming a new identity.
Legend recalls that the Chandilas were descendants of the moon god Chandra, who was so enchanted by the beauty of an earthly woman that he descended from the sky to make love to her. Born out of this meeting, Chandratraya was the founder of the Chandila dynasty. Under the patronage of these kings, countless workmen and artists gathered to build these alluring sandstone temples. The first Chandila temple was completed in 954 AD and symbolized their independence. Inscriptions and reliefs describe the history of the Chandilas and give us an idea of the life at that time. This is a depiction of a tantric teacher with his disciples. And here are the workers transporting stones for the building of the temples. In an amazing outburst of creative energy, most of the buildings were completed in the first 60 years, some of them as high as 40 meters with nearly 900 statues. Most of the temples were dedicated to Shiva and Vishnu, while one entire temple group was donated by merchants who belonged to the ascetic and non-violent Jain religion. Within 2 centuries, Khajuraho had developed into a major pilgrimage site with 85 magnificent temples and lakes. However, even as the city flourished, the threat of invasion was ever present. The kings had to continuously defend their newly acquired kingdom. Already in 1203, the Sultan of Delhi defeated the last great Chandila monarch. The dwindling power of the Chandilas had shrunk their realm. The once wealthy feudal empire could no longer extend its patronage to the arts. Khajuraho, however, continued to be their religious capital for more than 100 years. A traveler described it as a place where long-haired sages would gather to discuss philosophy. With the passage of time, thick forests enveloped the site, and the temples gradually became hidden and then forgotten by the world. Only 23 temples survive the ravages of time. In Hindu philosophy, everything is sacred, and the world is seen as one organic whole.
The basic principle, as I understand Hinduism, is that everything in the world is the manifestation of divinity. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about the body, about what we do, about eating or lovemaking, or any of these activities are all part of that divine life. Our choice is to bring that realization that everything that we do can be divine. It's about treading softly on this earth, on knowing that whatever we do, we're doing it in godliness.
The countless deities of the Hindu and Buddhist pantheons are seen as reflections and reminders of this divine potential within us.
And we seem to have forgotten that all of us are from this divine source. And we have a concept called Maya, which is like a veil. We just are enveloped in it. It's about I and me and mine. And I forget that you and me are just different manifestations of the same thing.
In India, agriculture predominates. The earth is seen as the mother which nourishes us. The worship of the feminine energy, the divine mother, is widespread and can be traced to ancient fertility cults. The male Hindu incarnations of God often appear with a female partner. She is not just a consort, she is the other half. It is only through the female that creation is actualized, bringing reality and generating life. The masculine energy is seen as the spirit, the creative principle in the universe. The goddess is its physical manifestation.
The goddess has many names and she has many forms, but the central concept is Shakti. She's energy. She's your capacity to love. She's your capacity to protect. She's your capacity to heal. She's your capacity to be compassionate. Shakti means that energy to do that.
The oldest temple at Khajuraho is the Chao Satyugini temple, which was built in the late 9th century AD. It is believed to have been the seat of the Tantric Yogini Kaula cult, which worshipped the Divine Mother in her 64 manifestations. It is possible that the Chandila dynasty chose Khajuraho as their religious capital, since it was already a famous Tantric site. In the West, Tantra is mostly known for its sexual aspects, but this is only a small and often distorted part of its practice. Tantra developed over more than 5,000 years as a system of rituals, exercises, and philosophical teachings. Tantra means expanding consciousness. It aims to transform our sense of existing as an isolated self into an experience of being at one with everything. Tantra celebrates the tremendous gift of the human body, which is seen as a replica and representation of the cosmos. It teaches that there is a way of recognizing our essence by using life experiences rather than denying them. Over time, India's society had developed moralistic and puritanical trends that highly valued celibacy and the renunciation of physical and emotional pleasures. The Tantra movement, with its life-affirming attitude, rebelled against those trends. Tantra's many different paths are based on experiencing rather than gathering knowledge. Diverse methods engage the senses through sound, mandalas, breathing exercises, hand and body postures, aiming to settle us into the present moment in contact with our original being. While many Tantrikas only visualize the divine union, others use the tremendous vital force of sexuality in their search for spiritual awakening. The Chowsat temple might have been a place where such sacred meetings happened. It could be that once couples in tantric union sat here in a circle around a master. In these secret sexual rituals, the participants saw each other as manifestations of the divine. The longing, desire, and passion were understood as the yearning to become one with the universe, and as a driving force to reach to this oneness. These Yogini Kala Tantrikas broke many of society's religious and social taboos by including members of all castes and by drinking alcohol and eating meat during their rituals. Because of such practices, including the approach to sexuality, Tantra was condemned and misunderstood, which led to the killing of hundreds of its practitioners. Even though Tantra originated from the same roots as Buddhism and Hinduism, it remained with its unconventional practices on the edge of Indian society. At the same time, this highly developed practical and psychological science revolutionized the development of philosophy throughout Central and Eastern Asia. Is there a hidden significance for us in these witnesses in stone of a culture lost and forgotten in the jungle for hundreds of years?
There's so much being said, being expressed by the positions that they're holding and the expressions that are there in their faces. They are absolutely present in those positions of their body. And this is one of the things that I feel that Tantra is attempting to do in modern times, is to bring people away from thinking into their body, into their feelings, into their heart, into this moment.
When I first heard about Tantra, I was thinking about sex, because I wanted to have the best sex ever. And then once I started studying about Tantra, I discovered it's a whole world out there that's Tantra. Everything involves Tantra. But basically it's about looking inside, connecting with our essence. And with our essence, we find the connection of everything.
At that time, people were a lot more connected to their bodies than we are nowadays. You know, a lot of the time we run around through life these days just being in the head. But from seeing those statues, we become really aware of that our bodies are the vessel or the temple of our spirit.
The temple is a place where the known meets the unknown. The profile resembles a mountain range rising up to the sky, like the Himalayas where the gods are said to reside. The aim of the temple is to show the relationship of the human body with the cosmos. The structure of a temple can be described in terms of the head, body, and legs. It is seen as a manifestation of the cosmos, in the same way as the body itself is a reflection of the universe in miniature. The tallest of the towers rises above the Garbhagriha, the womb chamber, symbolizing the meeting of heaven and earth in a person of the enshrined deity. This universal space is protected by guardians and mythical creatures. In many places, the beast, representing our animal nature, reminds us of the constant battle between knowledge and ignorance. The erotic figures made Khajuraho famous, but they comprise only a fraction of the entire range of magnificent sculptures. Integrated are divinities, angels, celestial beauties, and dancers.
Before coming here, a lot of people talked about, Khajuraho being all about erotic sculptures, very sexual, and I think it's much more than that. It has much more depth to the experience of the whole temples, the whole place, and I think it's just beautiful. It's full of life, and it feels like the sculptures dance, the temples dance. It's just moving.
If you look at the dancers when they're here, you can watch sculpture coming to life. You can watch Apsara, celestial dancers, as if these are living embodiments.
Indian classical dance is a form of offering to the gods, and dancers still travel to Khajuraho to study these authentic postures.
That beauty, that luster, that whole exuberance of Khajuraho are because of the female. The beauty, the actual concept of beauty has been brought by the artist through that female figures. Everything has been done with the flute, how the female is looking behind and taking out the thorn from the from her feet, putting the coal in her eyes. I believe the whole sexuality has come into the female form over there. I regard those bracket figures, especially those female figures, the most beautiful form of the architecture ever produced there in India.
As a sculptor from the West coming here, influenced by goddess forms, I come here and see their most perfect expression. This flowing line that exists in the sculptures exists in nature. You're seeing nature, as in leaf and tree, as in river, entering in through the sculpture into this stone form, making it soft as woman is.
The Natya Shastra, the scripture which guides the sculptors, gives precise instructions about the proportions of the body. The shapes are based on existing forms in nature and are meant to encourage a state of contemplation. For this reason, all the sculptures have the same appearance, even though created by individual artists.
There's a story in those women turning, twisting, moving, love-making, because it's the moment when you see God, when you see divinity. You become completely unconscious of what you're doing, or what you're wearing, or who you're with. But we see these ladies just at the point of meeting the Divine One.
In the Vedas, the holy scripture of India, heaven and earth are the parents of the universe. Before the temple is constructed, a ceremonial offering is performed on the temple site, in which the earth is impregnated with the symbolic seed of heaven.
The cosmos has space, and also it's unfolding in time, so you want to pick an auspicious place and an auspicious time in which to, in a sense, birth the temple, because the temple comes into being as a living entity, as a human being.
The position and building time of a temple is aligned to the sun and the planets. All has to be in harmony with the cosmic order to enable the energy of the enshrined deity to manifest its highest potential.
The Shiva temples were consecrated on Shivratri, which suits me wonderfully because it fits so well into my theory that we're really celebrating Shiva's wedding.
Mahashivaratri, a festival which symbolizes the marriage of Shiva and Parvati, is the one time in the year in Khajuraho when myth and reality blend together in a harmonious whole. In the morning, more than 20,000 pilgrims arrive to celebrate Shiva's wedding. The devotees bring coconut, rice, flowers, and incense as offerings for the gods. The bath is a purification rite, an important aspect of all Hindu festivals. After the holy bath, worshippers carry pots of water to the temple. The Matangeshwar temple was the only temple in use when Captain Burt rediscovered the site, and continues to be the center of worship today. This is where the divine marriage is still alive and vibrant. Inside the temple stands a giant stone lingam, an abstract pillar-like form. The lingam is a manifestation of Shiva and emerges from the yoni, the womb of Parvati. The devotees circumambulate the lingam, hugging and touching it with enduring affection to embrace the power of Shiva, the creator-destroyer. For the worshippers, the Shiva Lingam is a symbol of fertility. Women go there to pray for offspring, and parents bring their children to be blessed. At nighttime, the priests gather with their wives and conduct the wedding of the gods with all the accompanying human marriage rituals. The lingam is bathed in milk, yogurt, and clarified butter, and then dressed up just as one would prepare a human bridegroom. The celebration lasts the entire night.
Shiva is the space. He surrounds us. Everything, this space that we live in, is Shiva. And Shiva is within me, as the space within me. So the concept of the ling, it's the universal potential. It's the concept of everything and nothing. And it comes out of the earth. And the earth is our mother. The earth is the goddess. So it comes through the yoni. And that's the symbolism of Shiva and Parvati. The spirit and matter held together in that one union.
The Shiva Linga is never by itself, or rarely by itself. It's usually in a yoni, right? In a female vaginal structure, Shakti. And it's actually their union that is being expressed over there. And it is their union in the heart of the Shiva temple, which is producing the universe.
The myth recounts that after the formal wedding, Shiva and Parvati retire to spend time together. In the Shiv Purana text, we are told that they made love for 100 god years, millions of human lifetimes. In 1002 AD, King Danavida had these words inscribed at one of the temples. May the laughter of Shiva while jesting with his beloved wife Parvati be for your welfare. There are some beautiful poems which say that Shiva and Parvati are like sugar and sweetness. One cannot separate the two. Maituna's amorous couples have depicted this inseparability in Indian art for nearly 2,000 years. Maituna is a Sanskrit word meaning two persons so deeply dissolved into each other that they are no longer two. Maitunas portray the union of the soul with the divine.
When I started studying the sculptures in Khajuraho, for 150 years since Bert discovered them, they were always talked about as erotic sculptures. But if you look at the composition of those sculptures, they're a very precise design of the union of spirit and matter, the vertical triangle of spirit and the downward pointing triangle of the female principle. And these two join in it.
The union of these cosmic forces takes place in the center of the geometrical pattern. From there, all creation arises. In the East, the serpent has become the symbol of the energy that is dormant within us, the Kundalini. It sleeps like a coiled serpent at the base of the spine. When activated, it rises up the spine. As it moves through the heart, it transforms into love, and once it reaches the top, the seat of higher consciousness, it is described as blissfulness. In the language of modern science, Kundalini rising means the activation of the vast dormant areas of the brain. Yoga and Tantra teach how to move this energy upwards.
There's a quality in Tantra of a rising sexual energy. Those figures, they represent bliss and enjoyment and relaxation that you don't normally associate with sexuality. There's a quality of blissfulness, which is a quality that arises from meditation.
In Tantra, sexuality and spirituality are two aspects of the same energy.
Sex is as sacred as samadhi. The lowest and the highest are part of one continuum. The lowest rung is as much part of the ladder as the highest rung. They are nowhere divided.
This understanding is also represented in the structure of the temples. The base represents water and earth. The main body is inhabited by celestial beings, and above rises the roof with the gate of heaven in its design.
One of the unique architectural characteristics of Khajuraho is that those two levels, the upper and the lower, tend to dissolve in Khajuraho. All the forms come at many places all the way down, or rather start from the very ground where we live and go all the way up, so that that break between the world that we occupy and the model above is represented as something that can be dissolved. These vertical elements are showing how can we from the human realm access the world of the divine.
It could be that the figures were carved to test the sincerity and concentration of the devotees. It has been suggested that the Tantric disciples would meditate on the sculptures for months until their sexual desire had transformed into higher energies. In Eastern philosophy, the joy of life originates not from the outside, but from within. It is said that in deep meditation, duality disappears, since the focus is on oneself and not the other. Ardhanarishvar, a manifestation of Shiva, who possesses male and female attributes conjoined together, signifies this totality.
The concept of Shiva and Parvati is the union of both of them. There is only one God. There is only one. Even you and me are one, if only we could see it. Shiva, that oneness, is what we aspire to realize in our lives. The balancing of spirit and matter, of male and female within us, that's the concept, to bring everything. It's not just male, female, but everything into a balance, to see that oneness.
the non-manifest world is the same as the manifest world. And indeed, the point is to overcome them. And the overcoming of duality is first and foremost manifested by the coming together of opposites. Most significantly manifest by the coming together of Shiva and Parvati, or the basic male and female principle.
Khajuraho simply depicts you. It is the human story in stone. It is the human dance in stone. Courageous were the people who created these temples, and they had a vision. The still point is sown together with the turning worlds. The way of Tantra is not one of blind sensuality, and not only of spirituality either. Tantra does not believe in the philosophy of either or. It believes in the philosophy of both ends. It does not reject anything, it transforms everything.
The statues depict one of the most holistic attitudes towards life, in which everything is accepted because all is seen as divine. Love became the basic device to impart tantric wisdom. In love, oneness is felt. In the tantric understanding, bodies remain separate, but something beyond the bodies merges and becomes one. The form disappears, and the lover becomes a door to the universe.